So, we don't have a lot of verses, but we got a lot to cover. And some of it is actually kind of relevant to some things that have, if you're on the internet and kind of follow pop Christianity, you've heard about Kirk, and I think Brian even mentioned it last week, some of Kirk Cameron's speculations. And I got a little bit to say about that, and we'll talk about it when we get there. But anyway, so we're going to be in Revelation chapter 20, and like I said, not a lot of verses, but a whole lot to cover and discuss. So I'm going to go ahead and pray and we're going to get started. Dear God, I just thank you and praise you for the time we have together this morning. I pray that you would just have your way with this time. Just clear our minds and help us to think clearly and to put our thoughts towards you. A lot of what we're going to discuss here, there's a lot of, well, I've always believed, or I've heard, or so-and-so says with this, and let's help us to really just see what you are telling us in this passage here today, that we may walk with you in a way, in a better way, in a stronger way, in a way that glorifies you. And we just pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, last week we kind of got through all the tribulational kind of stuff, ended up with this war that's at the end of the tribulation, and then we dropped into chapter 20, which closes up those first three verses, talks about how the false prophet and the Antichrist are bound in a pit. And that's kind of, at least in the way my Bible is broken up, that is inside of, or the beginning of this, well, it says in my book, the 1,000 years. Yours might say the millennium, something along those kind of things. And part of what we have in chapter 20 is this millennial kingdom. And but it's inside a lot of stuff, and I'm going to tell you before we get going with this, I'm going to approach this in somewhat the traditional Baptist way. We've talked a lot about, when the rapture is, if there's a rapture, and there's a lot of movement on there. Then we have this thing that as Baptists we call the millennial kingdom. And quite honestly, depending on where you were brought up, you've probably heard a lot of stuff you've never heard before, or at least haven't heard outside of Baptist circles, or and I won't say that Baptists own this because we don't, but they're depending on your theological disciplines, you have different approaches and ways of looking at all of this. And I've made reference several times R.C. Sproul, and he's coming up from a Presbyterian Reformed theology tradition. And Sproul, I don't think he believes that now, because right now Sproul's in heaven with God, I think. And I think maybe that he doesn't believe that he was living in the millennial kingdom, but Sproul believed that we are in the millennium. And so for the people that, especially if you grew up reading the Left Behind series and all of that stuff, you're like, where in the world does that come from? Why would anybody come up with that idea? He's got to be a loon. R.C. Sproul's not a loon. You may or may not agree with all his theology. But as we've talked about a lot of this stuff, there's not a whole lot here. And a lot of the stuff that we say about what's going on, the millennium, is based on what we think about other things. And we take other passages throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament. And although those passages don't say that this is when it happens, we're like, well, we can't figure out anywhere else to put it. It's got to happen in the millennium. And we're going to kind of get to that. So, but I am coming at it from the standpoint, and I think this is the right way of looking at it, that the millennial kingdom or this millennial reign is a literal 1,000-year reign of Christ here on earth. And we're not talking about forever. We're talking about a 1,000-year reign. And there's stuff that happens after that. We're going to see that. So, we want to kind of run through. There's 3 sections here that we want to look at. The first one begins in chapter 20, verse 4, and runs through verse 6. And that's what I call the calm between the storms, or the calm after the storm. This is kind of calm between the storms, otherwise known as the millennial kingdom. And so would somebody read verses 4 through 6?
Then I saw thrones, and seated on them were those to whom the authority to judge was committed. Also I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for the testimony of Jesus and for the word of God, and those who had not worshipped the beast or his image, and had not received its mark on their foreheads or their hands. They came to life and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. The rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is the one who shares in the first resurrection. Over such, the second death has no power, but they will be priests of God and of Christ, and they will reign with him for 1,000 years.
Okay, and that is all the book of Revelation says about this. Not a whole lot. Okay, what do we have? But let's see what we have here. Okay, we have thrones set up, and who's the big Mac Daddy that's ruling over everything in this? Initials JC. Jesus Christ. Okay, you have Jesus ruling over this, but there are other thrones, and there's elders on their thrones, and then there's this resurrection. Okay, and it's a resurrection of whom? The beheaded saints that did not take the mark. Well, so we've got a time frame for these people. These are the people during the tribulation that did not take the mark of the beast, did not bow down, and they were martyred for their faith, and they are resurrected. Now, depending on where you place things, could it be more than? If you plus the church in through all of that, you've got the church being martyred through all of this. If you think the church was taken out, it's the people that have come to faith during the tribulation and have not bowed down to the beast, but they didn't take the mark, and they are doing what? They're being resurrected, and what are they doing now that they're resurrected? They're reigning with Christ. Okay, so here's the first question: who are they reigning over? This text does not tell us who they're reigning over. So we have to look at a number of things. Now, here's the question: is there anybody alive at the end of the tribulation?
Hope so.
Yeah.
Say it with confidence.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Who are they?
The shakers.
The shakers. Okay.
The fish shakers. No, the fish shakers. They call it God saints.
Well, there's this big war, and God and Jesus comes on his white horse, and he slays everyone that is warring or shaking a fist against God, and this army is behind him witnessing all of this. So who does Jesus come and smite at the end of the tribulation?
Those that were,
Those that rose up against him.
Yeah, and who is that?
All the armies of all the nations.
All the armies and all the people that took the mark, that are walking lock, stock, and barrel with the Antichrist, with them. He destroys all of them. Does he kill any of the faithful?
no.
No. Why would he? Okay. there's this other ethnic group that everybody's ganging up against, the Jews. So you do have this group of people that live through the tribulation. And they are those people that for whatever reason did not get beheaded, did not get martyred, but you have a group of Gentiles, we think, that survived the tribulation, and you also have the ethnic Jews that have surrendered to Christ as Messiah. And I think one of the points of the tribulation and everything building up is preparing Israel for the second coming of Christ, and they see him coming the second time, they're like, oh, yeah, I get it. You know, so you have this millennial kingdom with Christ on his throne, these righteous martyrs that have been resurrected. Possibly the church is not mentioned here, but probably the church, and they are reigning. And then you have these people that have come through the tribulation that are being reigned over, ruled over. Okay, now one of the things, especially if you're coming from what we call a dispensational viewpoint, and well, let me back up a little bit here. This is okay. Let's go back to Sproul. Sproul believed that we right now are in the millennial kingdom. Okay? Now, how long has it been since Jesus left? 2000
Plus.
2,000 plus years. Okay, and he would argue that at least after the destruction of the temple by Antiochus Epiphanes, during that time, which the temple is destroyed in 70 AD, Antiochus does all of his nasty stuff. So in the very first century, right in there, is where what he's saying the tribulation is pointing to. So basically from 100 AD on, according to Sproul's theology, we have been living in the millennial kingdom. And the Bible describes that as how long of a period of time? 1,000 years. But anybody can do math and say that Sproul has said we've been in the millennial kingdom for at least 2,000 years. So for him, is he looking at this millennial kingdom as a literal 1,000 years? Obviously not. Okay, this is why I kind of say in Baptist circles, because most all Baptists are what we call literalists. We want to read the Bible literally, even when we're reading something that we understand as figure of speech. We still understand that we are interpreting in a literal sense. And so what the literalist is looking at, that this is a literal 1,000 years, just like the tribulation was a literal 7 years. Okay? This is an edism. This is a literalistism. I don't see a mechanism for me to pull the trigger to say, okay, now we interpret this figuratively. Okay, I don't see that. Sproul did. I don't. Okay, so we're looking at a literal reign. Now there's some things that we place in here because we can't place it anywhere else. And it seems like, for one thing, there's a couple fulfillments that we place inside this millennial kingdom. God made 2 covenants with some people in the Old Testament. One guy was the name of Abraham, the other guy was the name of David. We call it the Abrahamic covenant, we call it the Davidic covenant. Okay, play Bible trivia here. Anybody remember what the promises were from God to Abraham in the Abrahamic covenant? There's 3 of them.
We'll make a great nation.
Make a great nation. Many descendants, which kind of comes, actually is 4 depending on how you count them. Great nation. He would give Israel something to possess.
Promised land.
Promised land. He would have many descendants, and the world would be blessed through his descendants. Okay? Now, here's the reality. If you go back and look and see the land that God promised Abraham, Israel has never occupied all of it. Okay? So the people that hold to this millennial kingdom, because of the nature of it, what we believe is that these promises that were given to Abraham are supposed to be fulfilled literally. Okay? God did not promise a figurative language. There was a figurative nation. It was a real nation. There were real blessings. There were real descendants, and there was a real piece of land called the Promised Land that was promised to Israel. That's what they're fussing over right now. Over there, is whose land is that promised to? And so there's what we believe is during that millennial kingdom, Israel will actually occupy all the land that was promised to them. Then you have the Davidic covenant, basically two parts, an eternal dynasty and an eternal throne. Okay? And right now, there is nobody on the throne of Israel, but who's the Big Mac Daddy sitting over this now? Jesus. And how long is he going to reign? Well, forever. That's a pretty long time. Okay? So we're looking for a literal fulfillment of that, and sitting under this discipline, this is where we place it. Okay? Is there anything in the Bible that says this is where this will happen? No. But the Bible does say it will happen. Okay? And so this is where you get a bunch of smart or smart guys or guys that think they're smart, and they all get in a room and they start beating each other up and writing books and getting them published and everything. And then we come up with all of this stuff. But we are looking towards God fulfilling the promises that He's made. Okay? And even if He doesn't fulfill it this way, is He going to fulfill it? Yes. Yeah. And that's where we have to show some grace in this. So we have this thing, and there's a few things that we kind of understand. Remember, Tuesday night I read out of Isaiah that unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will rest on his shoulders. He will rule. And what is he doing here? He's ruling. Okay? And we see from this that he's ruling rather authoritarianly, in that it's his way or the highway kind of deal. And there's some things that, and we're going to kind of want to kick this stuff out here because I want to get somewhere. But there's a few things that we describe it. This time is noted as a theocracy. Did I spell that right? I don't know. You might know what a theocracy is?
It's a kingdom that's God-centered. It's like the Iranians with their religion.
Yeah, the Iranians have a theocracy, but Allah is in control. A theocracy is where God rules. Okay? Now, in the Old Testament, in Israel's time, what kind of system did they have? When you were given the Levitical system, the law out of the book of the Levitical system and all that, what kind of government system was that to be?
A theocracy?
It was a theocracy. But then they started crying and they wanted a king just like everybody else had, and then God allows them to have a king. But the intention was for them to have a theocracy. That theocracy was met out through the judges and the priests and stuff like that. It was not a perfect system, but it was a theocratic system. Now we've got Jesus on the throne, and he is truly ruling. So now we have a real theocracy where God is ruling. This is good. Okay? Because when Israel had a theocracy back then, how did it work out for them?
I'm too good.
Not too good. Was that God's fault? No, it was their fault. Okay? And why? So it's working out badly because we're all broken people, and the priests and the rulers back then were broken people. I mean, just look at Eli's sons and the way that they did. So, but we're going to have a theocracy, or they're going to be a theocracy where Jesus is literally on his throne, on the throne. The center of everything is going to be Jerusalem, and and like I said, it's a theocracy, and Christ is seated on the throne, which makes this a government system that'll actually work. Imagine that. And then you have the subjects. We've already discussed that the subjects are going to be these people that have come, that have come out of the tribulation, and then. Another way of understanding it is it is going to be a spiritual in the physical. Where is this?
On earth.
On earth. And earth is a physical place. It's got dirt. It's physical. But you got a whole bunch of spiritual beings. Where? On the earth. On the earth. So it's a spiritual and physical thing going on here. Isaiah says that it's going to be a righteous time. And that's not 80s slang. But a time of righteousness, peace. Where is Satan? Where's Satan right now? He's chained up. He's bound. And it's a time of peace. If it's a righteous time and it's a peaceful time, it's going to be a prosperous time. Okay. So, crops are doing well, everything is going well. It's, describing this time, it's going to be unusual for people to not die of old age. It's going to be, people are going to live a long time, and it's going to be a religious time. Who's at the center of everything?
Christ.
Jesus. For how many people is Christ the center of everything? All of them. Okay? In fact, the only people that start out here are people that have put their faith where? In Christ. There's no players. It's a genuine faith, it's a genuine trust, and there's nothing to mess it up. I vote yes. Okay? You would think that everything would be great. And for 1,000 years, it's what? It's great. Now, okay,
A question. We're gonna be leaving our fleshly bodies, we have a spiritual body, right?
well,
We won't be there in physical, but we'll be there
Okay.
in spirit.
going to, okay, I can't give you scripture and verse right now, okay? So I'm gonna just have to tell you some truths, okay? When Jesus was resurrected from the grave, what kind of body did he have?
Glorified body.
Physical.
A physical and spiritual body, a glorified body. He could be touched, he could be felt, but at the same time, he could walk through walls, okay? It's a physical body. And Jesus is said to be the first fruits of the resurrection. And we have other passages that say we will be raised to be like him. The kind of body that Jesus has is the kind of body that we'll have. So it is a physical resurrection. Okay. Now, so these that were raised from the dead, that are ruling with Christ, they are physically raised from the dead. Okay. So it's not just Casper the ghost walking around, but it is a physical body, but it's also a spiritual body.
So when Jesus was transfigured, Moses and Elisha was with him, were they in physical or spiritual body?
Good question. This is my opinion. I would say, it's a good question. What you have there, you're not seeing Jesus in a glorified body. You're having his humanity peeled back so that you can see the divinity. Okay? And, did Elijah and Moses come down? Or are they in heaven and they're being allowed to see in heaven?
Didn't
Good
John
question.
and Peter recognize them though?
They did recognize them, okay? So, I don't think it's because they had name tags. So there's a lot of unanswered things when you get into this because, but they saw them and they knew who they were. And, they did not have have the yearbook or whatever.
Right.
So there was some way that they were able to recognize each other. And in the same way, when we get together, we'll recognize each other.
But they would not have known each other on earth.
No,
So recognizing takes on a whole different.
it takes on a whole different meaning.
But there had to be something there to recognize.
Yeah, there had to be something there to
Yeah,
recognize.
to be recognized.
But I don't,
Okay, I got it. Can I say something?
sure,
Yeah, okay, so they were looking at Elijah and Moses. Moses died, his body was hidden from God. The resurrection that Cross talks about in the Bible hasn't taken place yet, where the dead from the grave comes up yet.
Right.
Moses is still in his grave. So my thinking is that they were seeing a spiritual presence, but they could identify.
right,
because
and that's really,
Yeah.
I'm most comfortable with that. I don't want to say definitively, no, it wasn't a resurrected
But
body.
Elijah was taken up.
Taken,
directly into heaven.
Elijah is
So-
taken up, so
Yeah.
the two are, it's
Yeah.
a different thing. What I would say is that, like Lazarus, I like what Vodi Balkan said about him. Lazarus was not resurrected, he was resuscitated.
Yeah.
Because he died again. Okay, and the resurrection is a once and for all resurrection. You have also with the crucifixion, you have all these Old Testament saints that come to life and are walking up and down the streets. Well, how in the world did they know that they were Old Testament saints? I think in the same way that Peter and John then knew that it was Moses and Elijah. Okay, but how that is, I don't know. Okay, but whenever we have this resurrection and this glorified body we occupy, it is a physical body, but it's also a spiritual body. Okay, so it's not similar. But the thing I want you to see here, and we're not to the end yet. We're still not to the end yet, but we have this wonderful time where Jesus is at the center and everything is perfect. It's finally firing on all 8 cylinders. Everything's working the way it's supposed to. And for 1,000 years, and remember what happened after World War II when everybody got home and we got in this great time of peace and prosperity?
Baby boom.
Baby boom. There's gonna be a baby boom for 1,000 years.
real quick to backtrack just a second, just a half of it. And it is a Steveism that I believe that that they were able to recognize Moses and Elijah and knew who they were. Same way when Jesus asked everybody, "Who do you say I am?" No one answered, and then he asked Peter, "Who do you say I am?" And he said, "The Messiah." He said, "The only way you would have known that if my Father told you." So I think he told them.
They have.
Or, you know, angels can appear like humans, look just like me and you. So God could do anything.
Yeah, God can do anything.
Absolutely.
The reality is we don't know. We really don't
I've
know.
got an argument.
Yeah.
Don't overthink everything.
Yeah.
You overthink it.
Yeah. Here's what I want you to see though. This is a great prosperous time that comes as close to being the Garden of Eden as we've seen until now. Okay? A perfect time. And was the situation in the Garden of Eden a perfect time?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it was. Did it turn out well? No. Look what happens here. Somebody read verses 7 through 10.
When the 1,000 years are over, Satan will be released from his prison and will go out to deceive the nations in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them for battle. In number they are like the sand on the seashore. They marched across the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of God's people, the city he loves. But fire came down from heaven and devoured them. And the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet had been thrown. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever.
Okay. So, at the end of the 1,000 years, Satan escapes. No, he did not escape. Satan is released. Who released him? Well, there's only one that can. God released him.
You must have repented, right? And God said,
Or not.
Or maybe not, maybe not. Okay, and as soon as Satan is released, but so once again, he is released. He does not escape. Therefore, who's in control?
God.
God is in control. This is part of God's will and part of God's plan. And he released him. And what does Satan? Satan does what? Deceives the nations.
four corners of the earth.
The thing here that really sticks out for me is he gathers so many people as like the sand of the sea.
And does not. That's a familiar phrase. It's a familiar phrase. Okay. He deceives the nations and he gathers an army. And like Dan said, it's a great big army. It's a big army. And he is leading them to do what?
Surround Jerusalem.
Surround Jerusalem and attack who?
God's people.
God's people.
God.
God's people, and more importantly, God. Okay. Where did he gather the army from?
The nations.
Okay, and where did all these people come from?
The baby boomers.
Yeah, it's the baby boomers. It's the baby boomers. It's the big baby boomers. Okay?
This is in the during 1,000 years.
For 1,000 years, everything's about Jesus. Everything's focused on Jesus. There's no problem. There's no strife. Everything is great. And Satan is released and he goes out and deceives. And how many people does he deceive out of this perfect situation?
Tons.
A lot.
And these are people on the earth.
People on the earth.
Yeah, they're not from back before.
These are people on the earth that have survived, that came out of the tribulation and were produced during the baby boom of the 1,000-year millennial kingdom. Okay? Why would God let Satan do this?
It's free will, it's choice. You know, even the angels had that.
Yeah.
We don't understand it, but he wants people to come to him out of love, not to make them like robots.
Yeah, you've got people walking in obedience, but does God have their hearts?
Their faith has not been tested.
Yeah, their faith has not been tested, and faith will be tested. And what we see, that even in this perfect environment, there are many that will go astray. Even in this perfect environment, Jesus is there.
Just like the Garden of Eden.
Just like the Garden of Eden, or almost just like the Garden of Eden. Okay?
I think, how can people be so stupid?
It's an advantage for God because he's got all these non-believers together at one point. They probably don't realize it. He doesn't have to go around all over everywhere. He's right there to be able to be wiped out at one time.
And yeah, and it's interesting, they go to fight against God and fire comes down from heaven. Does that sound familiar to something in the Old Testament?
Yeah.
Priest
You
of
know,
Baal.
Priest of Baal. I mean, this is sounding just like the priest of Baal. Okay, so he destroys all of them. He kills all of them by fire coming down from heaven. But then what does he do with Satan? Casting him in the lake of the fire. What? Okay, now and what's going to happen to him in the lake of fire? He's going to be tormented for how long?
Forever and ever.
Forever and ever. Okay, now number one, why doesn't he cast the other people into the lake of fire?
Well, he's the instigator.
Been destroyed.
They've been destroyed by fire. But Satan is, okay, let's just he's got to get a couple flames on him, right? But what does the fire not do? It doesn't destroy him. And then God throws him into the lake of fire where he is tormented for how long? Forever and ever, Kirk Hanley.
It mentions the beast and the false prophet.
Are there too. And they've been there for 1,000 years. And what about them?
Tormented day and
They're
night.
still tormented there for 1,000 years. Okay. What is the devil? He's a fallen angel. He's a spiritual being. Okay. Not a physical being. Okay. What were the people that rose up against God that God destroyed with fire? Physical beings. Couldn't the body be destroyed in a short period of time through fire? Yes. Okay, so if it's a physical being thrown into the lake of fire, can it be destroyed? Yes. But if a spiritual being is thrown into the lake of fire, what happens? Evidently. Tormented for ever and ever. Okay?
What about the spirits of those
Talking about the
physical
soul.
beings?
The soul.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get there. Okay, but what I want you to see here is the fire did not consume Satan. He hasn't consumed the false prophet. There's something different going on here. So then we get into verse 11. Okay, somebody read verses 11 through 15.
Then I saw a great white throne and him who was seated on it. Earth and sky fled from his presence, and there was no place for them. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne. And the books were opened. Another book was opened, which is the book of life. The dead were judged according to what they had done, recorded in the books. The sea gave up the dead that were in it, and the death and Hades gave up the dead that were in them, and each person was judged according to what he had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. The lake of fire is the second death. If anyone named was found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire.
Okay?
Who was not found written in the book of life.
All right. So remember that you had, when the thrones were set up, there was a resurrection. And this was a resurrection of whom? The martyrs. Okay? And so this is a resurrection unto righteousness. What kind, if we're, okay, a little bit, doesn't say here, but what kind of body would they have received in this resurrection? A glorified body, okay? Now we come over here at the end of this 1,000-year reign, and now that God has destroyed all of his enemies, and it says that there is another, what? Resurrection. Is this a resurrection unto glory to the spending eternity with God? No, it's a resurrection for what? Judgment. Okay? And they are judged according to what? Their deeds. But we're judged according to our deeds too. But what gets us the end? The fact that our name is in the book of life. Now, how many are resurrected at this time? Yeah, everybody that's left. Okay, and if you're left, what resurrection is left for you? Just a resurrection of judgment. Okay, and they are raised a physical and spiritual body. And when they're found, when their deeds are found to be lacking and their name is not in the book of life, what happens to them?
Thrown into the lake
They're
of fire.
thrown into the lake of fire. But now it's not just a physical being. What is it? It's a spiritual being. Similar to whom? Satan. And how long will Satan be tormented? Forever and ever. So how long will these spiritual beings be tormented? Forever and ever. Okay?
So only those bodies will be destroyed. For that one that, when you said they was destroyed,
They were just, yeah, that physical body is destroyed. But the spiritual body, so how, trick question, how many people are going to live forever? Everybody is. But the question is, are you going to spend forever with God, or are you going to spend forever in the lake of fire? Smoking or not smoking? Yeah, not according. Yeah, and understand something. I was not here last week. I don't know exactly what Brian said about it. But Kurt, when it came out, I did a lot of research and I went back. What exactly did he say? Kirk Cameron is not saying that he does not believe in hell. But what he is saying is that he believes that while you're in hell or in that, what his thinking is that, because what's going to happen to hell? It's cast into the lake of fire, and his thinking is that, yeah, there's this torment in hell, but when you're cast into the lake of fire, everything is destroyed. You're getting this annihilationism. He's not denying faith in Christ. He is rock solid on that. I think he's dead wrong on this particular issue, but this is not, there's a lot of people going crazy over this, and it's not necessary. I do believe he's wrong, but he's right on the fundamentals. And who's the guy that he worked with? Ray Comfort. Ray Comfort has put out a statement in regards to this, and as far as Ray Comfort's organization and Kirk, they have not worked together for years, and stuff. And even Ray's like, I think Kirk's wrong on this one.
yeah, you've given me something to. I minister to some Jehovah's Witnesses.
They believe in annihilation.
Exactly, and this is exactly what we're going on right now.
Yeah.
And you gave me,
And one of the things you have to understand, another insight with Jehovah's Witnesses, is they do believe in an eternal hell. But that is only for the people that have left the faith of Jehovah's Witnesses. You're better off to have never come to be a Jehovah's Witness. So they believe that we will all be annihilated. But it is only those people that were Jehovah's Witnesses and to reject the faith, those are the ones that go to hell. That's why it's such a hard sell. Because they're better off to be annihilated. This is a little greedy on Jehovah's Witnesses. But what you're seeing in this is God's judgment being met out eternally. And I believe that this is much more in line with God's character because He is eternally holy. And when we sin against God, we sin against an eternally holy God. And the only way to repay for that sin is eternally. Okay? And annihilationism and anything that goes along those lines, it does not play in the character of God if you keep it in line. What is it what's the only description of God that's repeated 3 times in the Bible?
Holy.
Holy, holy, holy. You know, we talk about God is love. Yes, He is love, but what kind of love is it? It is a holy love. It is a holy love, and we kind of miss that. So, you know, here, you know, as I was thinking about this, you know, what's the takeaway for me? What's the gut check thing for me? And the gut check thing for me is that there were so many people in a perfect situation that there was like the sands on the sea that were given the opportunity in a perfect situation, they turned against God. They were going through all the right motions, they were saying all the right words, they were doing all the right things for up to 1,000 years. But at the end of that 1,000 years, given the opportunity, what did they do?
Satan.
They turned. You know, we're in a great church. We're in a very active church. We get good sound teaching. You know, we live in an environment where being, quote, good is a good thing. As I used to joke as a pastor, I'm like, my people, I mean, I get paid to be good, but my congregation's good for nothing. That's a slow burn. It hits on multiple levels as you keep on thinking about it. But you know, it's easy to be good when you live in an environment where you're expected to be good and you're expected to be a certain way.
and plus Satan is not bothering you.
And Satan's not bothering you.
And
You know,
everything's going your way.
Yeah, everything's going your way.
Yeah,
You know,
good is culturally defined in our country.
And good is culturally defined.
It's not a biblical righteousness or goodness, it's what our culture says.
Yeah, it's what our
is
culture
right.
says it is,
Right,
yeah. You know, and so our cultural goodness is still what before God?
Dirty rags.
Dirty rags, dirty, filthy rags. So even when we look at ourselves and think, I'm pretty good, what am I? I'm pretty bad. And, you know, and so even though I'm in a perfect environment where it is good to be good and it's easy to walk in that, and go through everything, do everything right, where is my heart? Where is my heart? Because I can feign obedience and still not have my heart where it's supposed to be. I can do the right things and still not be right with God. Okay? You know,
I
yes.
say the antidote to that, to getting right with God, is fueling that fire with relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only way Nidra and I are gonna stay close, if I not just get comfortable that she's at the house, if I nurture that relationship. Otherwise, we just passing each other in the house.
And we can get to be the same way with God.
Exactly.
We have to maintain, nurture, and grow that relationship. And that's the big thing. And you've got people here that they went through the motions and they did the right things to stay out of trouble, but did they have the relationship? No, they did not. And as soon as it was tested, it was bore out of where they were living. And that's something I think we should always examine ourselves. And when somebody says, well, where are you with God? Well, I do, well, you have gone the wrong down the road. You've gone down the wrong path. I think it's a good place to stop, Dan.